I was at my breaking point with my Hashimoto's. You know the part where you're doing everything and nothing seems to be working? The part where you lose faith? The part where you start apologizing to family because you're the one who's sick? Yeah, that part. And that's when everything changed. I realized that I wasn't broken. My Hashimoto's wasn't a curse. It was a message, a call to reconnect with the parts of me that had been silenced for so many years. I was the daughter of two South American parents who immigrated to North America seeking a better life. Despite growing up in a loving family, my childhood felt pretty unstable. I remember being younger and sitting at the top of the stairs, listening in on these arguments that my family would be having late into the night. I learned early on that keeping quiet was the only way to keep the peace. I think by the time that I hit my 20s, like most 20-year-olds, I was looking for my identity. Believe it or not, I started out as a graphic designer, and I started working for a psychiatrist who needed logos and a website done. I began to spend a lot of time with him and his assistant. We went to dinners together, and at the time, I was fascinated because he had this very unconventional approach to addressing mental health. So when I went back to his place, like I had done so many times in the past, I thought I could trust him. And I shouldn't have. I went down a really dark path for many years. I just didn't want to feel anything anymore, to the point that I was drinking all the time, to the point of blacking out. When you're in that position, you just don't want to feel the pain anymore, because it almost feels like your ego gets so loud that it's like, see, this is evidence that you don't matter. I went from one dysfunctional relationship to another, and my digestion was starting to scream at me. My hormones were starting to scream at me that by 2010, I had an ovarian cyst that had ruptured and it tore off a piece of my right ovary, and I almost bled to death. When you don't feel safe and you're feminine, you are going to show up in this world in your masculine. And I can tell you from experience that it isn't sustainable. Stress will eventually impact your thyroid until it can no longer keep up. And here's the thing. We know that women with Hashimoto's often exhibit poor vagal tone, meaning that they wrestle with the ability to handle stress. So it's no surprise that in 2017, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. I had debilitating fatigue, intense brain fog, and depression so bad that I felt like a part of me was slipping away. And little did I realize that the apartment that I was living in for years had mold and was contributing to my symptoms. I used to experience these ice prick headaches, and they were so bad that when I would do breath work, I'd have to hold my temples because I felt like my head was gonna blow up. And then I also ended up having 2 Hashimoto's flare-ups, which is essentially when you have this intensity of your Hashimoto's symptoms that it would leave my face temporarily swollen. Then my digestive symptoms began to really intensify to the point that I couldn't eat nearly anything. I was intolerant to pretty much every single food, even the most benign ones under the sun. I then decided that I was going to do the carnivore diet. And honestly, it helped me tremendously. There's videos on my YouTube channel about it. And it really helped with lowering the inflammatory response that I had been experiencing, especially since before when I would eat, I would be reeling in digestive pain for 5 to 6 hours after eating. So it was really therapeutic when I was doing it. But despite what people might tell you online, the carnivore diet is not the cure. It is amazing as an elimination diet. It is amazing to reduce the inflammatory response. It can maybe temporarily help you go into remission, but I guarantee that if you don't address the underlying causative factors for why you can't eat a bunch of foods, the second that you introduce a vegetable or a fruit that you couldn't eat before, your antibodies are just going to shoot back up again. And I honestly think that people walk into the natural health industry looking for the supplement protocol, the diet that's gonna fix me. And man, I wish it were that easy, but it's simply not how it works. You need a holistic approach. Otherwise, you're not gonna get results. And for me personally, I felt like all this suppressed emotion kept coming up as yet another pattern, more self-sabotage, more triggers that I just couldn't move through. And I knew that deep down, it was actually preventing me from getting well. And like most women that I work with, I tried protocol after protocol, more gut work, more supplements. And then I ended up realizing that I actually was healing in the wrong order. I know that this might be a completely new concept to you, but yes, there is an order to healing. So if you're trying to address the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, the H. pylori, the candida, the mold, the heavy metal toxicity, and you're doing those things first, I can guarantee you it's going to come back and rear its ugly head, that you're going to end up spending more money, more time, more energy. And I'm telling you, all three of those things are your currency. So fast forward, 2018, I started having problems taking in a deep breath. So I went to the doctor. I had an ultrasound done on my thyroid, and they discovered that I had 4 thyroid nodules on my left side, and I had 1 large one on my right. And honestly, despite doing everything right, I was depressed as hell. I intuitively knew that I was missing something, that I was missing the deep emotional work that I had been avoiding for years. I was at my breaking point with my Hashimoto's. You know the part where you're doing everything and nothing seems to be working? The part where you lose faith? The part where you start apologizing to family because you're the one who's sick? Yeah, that part. I honestly felt like I was losing a part of myself. And I was scared shitless. And this is a part of my story where I dove deep into the emotional, psychospiritual aspects to healing, where I discovered that there was an order to healing, where I realized that the non-supplemental strategies were oftentimes even more powerful than the supplements itself. So by 2020, right before the pandemic hit, I got an updated ultrasound that the 4 nodules on my left lobe were completely gone, and the one on my right lobe, the big one, the one that was not shrinking down no matter what I did, had decreased by half, and the doctors were floored. And with the work that I continued to do, because talk about motivation, they all ended up shrinking down completely. I became so passionate about this work that I decided I'm going to set fire to Sexy Food Therapy, my old company that had a massive following. And I decided to start Thyroid Alchemy, where I help women who have hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's transform their thyroid health, because I just know how potent this can be, this transformation. I then went on to create the Butterfly Effect, which is my program that outlines my signature framework that helps women with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's shrink their thyroid nodules, regain their energy, especially if they feel they have to ration what little energy they have left between family and work and other obligations, that helps them get off this rat race of healing because they're going through numerous protocols that don't work, that help them address the emotional, psychospiritual aspects to this journey, that help them understand the order to healing in an easy to understand way that isn't going to overwhelm them, because I have their back every step of the way. And listen, I get you probably have trust issues. I did too, especially since having multiple failed attempts can feel traumatic. But I need to tell you something. And if there's one thing you take out of this video, it's this. You don't have to heal. Despite the fact that you might feel like you have to, despite feeling like you've been told that you need to, you don't have to heal. Because what I've come to realize is when you are chasing healing, you are chasing your enoughness. Because deep down on a psychological level, you believe that you are broken and you cannot build anything from a cracked foundation. Listen, I'm not denouncing your efforts to live well, but rather your intentions behind it. If there is anything that I have learned through my journey, is that if you want to get anywhere with this, that this has to be a return back home to yourself. How can I love myself bigger? How can I be more compassionate to myself? How can I listen to the parts of me that weren't heard as a child? That's the medicine. And this is exactly why I created the butterfly effect, because it helps my patients go from surviving to thriving, just like I did. No more guesswork, no more worshiping at the altar of worthiness, no more adding unnecessary supplements to your supplement graveyard. No more hustling at the altar of worthiness, just results. And because I want to see you through this, when you join the butterfly effect, you end up receiving 6 months of free access in the Sisterhood membership, where you will gain access to me and my team for Q&A calls, for monthly coaching calls, for our monthly challenges where you can win a $75 Amazon gift card simply for participating. It allows you to become accountable and motivated in the work that you're doing so that you don't fall off the bandwagon. And on top of it all, you end up accessing my library of protocols, not only for you, but for your family. So if you want to understand a little bit more about this, click the link in the description to receive all the details. Everything that I've been through has led me here. And I believe that that is the strength of our stories. And if I can get through just one woman, then I've done my job. And here's the thing I need you to understand about working with me. I'm not here to abandon you, because you've already done that way too many times with yourself. Rather, I'm here to help you rise, because I'm living proof that it's possible. I spent a lot of time with him and his assistant. Uh, we would go out for dinners, and frankly, I was pretty fascinated with his unconventional approach to addressing mental health.